Greetings and welcome to Yellowstone Ghost Stories, Episode 19, The Whispers of Yellowstone Lake. Can you hear the whispers from Yellowstone Lake? Within this century, great discoveries have occurred. We can gaze further into space than ever before. Our weather instruments are so accurate they allow us to track weather across the world and forecast storms. In fact, there is really very little that goes on in our atmosphere that scientists cannot see, record, dissect, and explain. But this has not always been the case. Years ago, before we knew as much about our Empyrean surroundings, we did not separate spectra and science, uncertain and even bizarre atmospheric occurrences often were blamed on spirits and the supernatural. Supernatural or not, the whispers of Yellowstone Lake have in fact been scientifically documented, but never explained. The whispers are described as mystic aerial sounds which rise up from the lake. They come in the early morning when the air is still and the sky is cloudless. The sounds are similar to the vibrations of an electric harp. They are said to start as a low, soft hum, which can be heard from a great distance. As the hum draws nearer, it becomes louder and louder. Then it passes overhead and slowly starts to die away as it continues in the opposite direction. It lasts no more than a half a minute or so. No one really knows exactly what it is. Many have speculated, trying to label the sound. Some say it's the wind blowing through the trees, but there's no wind. Others have said it sounds like hundreds of swinging telegraph wires, but there are no wires. Some insist it sounds like a swarm of bees, but that's also impossible because the eerie sound often happens in the dead of winter. Others have said it sounds like electricity in the air, or the whistling of wings of ducks, or the erupting noise of steamboat geyser. Maybe the sound belongs in its own class of aerial echoes. Since the earliest days of exploration, people have written about the strange lake sounds. Mountain men and fur trappers heard it, and their stories, being somewhat inflated, of course, were repeated throughout the country. Probably one of the first scientific reports of this sound came from a member of the famous Hayden expedition. Mr. F. H. Bradley, a member of that party, recalled that he heard it one morning during his breakfast. He said it sounded like a horse whine, but he couldn't determine where it was coming from. Later, in 1891, Barton Everman reported to have heard it. In 1893, Edwin Linton collected many accounts of the sound and promptly published the article for Science magazine. He heard the sound twice himself and described it as a strange echoing type of sound in the sky. He also related that it seemed to always die away to the south. Linton asked local mountain guides about it, but they had no idea what it was. Those who had heard it all agreed it was truly one of the most mysterious sounds heard in the mountains, although others mentioned sounds after Linton's report. Little was published until Yellowstone photographer Jack Haynes heard the noises himself in 1924. In his Haynes Guide, he said that he and others were in the boat on Yellowstone Lake near Pelican Roost Island, just off the shore from Steamboat Point, in the northeastern part of the lake. It was early in the morning, and the lake was mirror still. The sound first rose overhead from the west like a low roar. Becoming louder, it began to rise in pitch. Then it rapidly faded away toward the southwest, and lowering in pitch, it finally silenced. Haynes said it then repeated from the other direction, and still another sound was heard a third time from another direction. Strangely enough, all this occurred in less than a minute, sounding like nothing he had ever heard before. In 1935, Ed Henry suggested the eerie sound may be the result of strange air currents caused by the mountain peaks. Henry contacted Hiram Chittenden, who had also studied the sounds, and Chittenden agreed that possibly Henry was right in his theory. Although those who have heard the sounds describe them slightly differently, the circumstances and setting have all been similar. 1. They happened when the park was not busy with people. Second, they happened between sunrise and 10 a.m. Third, they happened on mornings following an unusually cool night. And fourth, they happened when the lake was calm. What is this spooky sound? Where does it come from? Perhaps we'll never know unless the next and last story is the answer to the whispers of Yellowstone Lake. Take care. Hope you enjoyed this story, and hope you're looking forward to the last story in this series, entitled The Lake Never Gives Up Its Dead. The lake never gives up its dead. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode of Yellowstone Go!